Hey everyone, Shane here with etrailer.Com. Today I have a 2012 Chevrolet Traverse, and I want to walk you through how to install the Blue Ox base plate. Blue Ox base plate is designed to allow you to flat tow your vehicle behind your motorhome. It attaches directly to the chassis of the vehicle to give your tow bar a solid connection point. Steel construction, black powder coat finish. It's going to stay looking nice for a very long time. It's going to come with removable arms. So when you're not towing your vehicle, you simply remove the arms and it maintains a nice clean look on the vehicle. This is what our base plate is going to look like when we're not flat towing our vehicle. The only thing we can really see sticking out is going to be our safety chain loops. See, our safety chain loops have very large openings for our safety cables that are going to have very large hooks on them. As far as the removable arms, this is what they're going to look like. They're going to have a spring-loaded pin, and to install them, you simply slide them in till that pin collapses, twist it till it locks in place. So pull them out, simply pull the ring out, twist it, and you slide the arm out, throw these in a storage compartment somewhere till you're ready to tow your vehicle the next time. Another really nice feature with this base plate, it's going to have a cap. So when we're not flat towing our vehicle, we have the arms removed. Simply slide that cap in place, and it keeps the inside of that from getting gunked up with dirt and debris. Now when you're ready to hook up to your vehicle, you have your arm in place. To hook your tow bar up to it, you simply pull the pin out. There's going to be an arrow. It's going to say up, so you want that facing up. We're going to line up these holes with the two holes there. This center is going to slide right in the middle. Extend it out. We'll line up our holes, slide your pin through, and install your clip. Once you have your tow bar on, simply hook up your safety cables. You want to make sure that they are crisscrossed on the RV side. So driver's side is going to go to passenger side on the RV, vice versa for the passenger side of the vehicle going to the driver's side on the RV. Hook up your wiring, your cable for your braking system, and you're ready to hit the road. Now the base plate is only going to be one of the 8 components needed to flat tow the Traverse behind the motorhome. The other 7 are going to be your safety cables, your tow bar, your wiring, your braking system, a stoplight switch, the Roadmaster fuse bypass for a 50 amp fuse, battery fuse that has to be either pulled or in this case, using the battery fuse bypass allows you to push a button and disconnect it. And then a fuse bypass for the ECM fuse. You can find each one of those components here at etrailer.com. With our base plate installed, the measurement from the ground centered on the pin is going to be 15 inches. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go out to your motorhome from the ground to the center of your hitch, take a measurement. If those two numbers are more than 3 inches apart, you're going to need a high-low adapter. You can find those here at etrailer.com. As far as the installation process, it's pretty straightforward. It's really not too difficult. It will require you to drill holes, a few holes in the side of the frame rails, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You will have to remove the fascia, and I will suggest when you have the fascia off, I suggest installing any of your other components for your flat tow setup, like your braking system and your wiring. Install that while you have the fascia off because it's going to make it a lot easier. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's walk you through how to get it installed. Starter installation, we're going to start underneath the hood. This plastic panel that runs right here, we need to remove all the push pin fasteners that are holding it in place. All we're going to do is we're going to pry up in the center and then pull the base out. We're going to remove all of them from one side to the other. You can use a flathead screwdriver if you don't have a trim panel tool. Sometimes these make it a little bit easier to get underneath the head to pull those up. Once you remove all your push pin fasteners, this rubber seam that runs right here, or seal, we need to stretch it over and pull it off of that little fastener there. We're going to do that on both sides. We'll take this and set it aside. We're going to take a T20 Torx bit. We're going to remove this bolt and these two in the center on both sides. Next, we're going to come just in front of our tires on each side. Our T20 Torx bit, we're going to have a bolt here. We follow up, we're going to have a bolt right here. We need to remove both of those, again, on each side of the vehicle. And we'll take a 7mm socket right up in this corner where your fascia meets your fender. We need to remove that bolt on each side. Underneath the vehicle, on each side, we're going to remove this bolt, 10mm socket, we're going to remove this bolt. Again, we'll use the T20 Torx bit to remove these. Then a 10mm to remove this one. Now we're going to start removing our fascia. It's a good idea to have an extra set of hands. What we're going to do is we're going to start all the way on the outside and work our way to the center. Keep in mind, if you have fog lights, we don't want to just pull the fascia off because we don't want to damage the wiring. So what I did is I took the box that the base plate came in, I got it sitting underneath the fascia, so when I pull one side off, I can set it down, and that'll give me a little bit of extra help when I unplug the wiring. We're going to pull this down. Again, watch your wiring. We're going to push that black tab, and that will disconnect our fog lights. We're going to do that on each side. Then we'll take our fascia and set it aside somewhere safe. Then on each side, right underneath our bumper beam, we're going to have a push pin fastener. We're going to remove that. And then we need to trim this. So what we're going to do, we're going to go across and we're going to come straight down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a little piece connected here. So right on the inside of this harder piece here, you can kind of see where that mark is. I'm going to cut it off right there. It's pretty soft rubber, so you may be able to do it just with a utility knife. Just like that. We'll do that on both sides. Next thing we need to do on each side, we need to cut this rib piece out. From the center rib, we're going to be right on the inside of it. So we're going to be cutting this section out, and we're going to cut it even with the top of our frame rail. We need to go over from that mark over 2.5 inches. We're going to be using a couple different saws here. Since this is part of the frame, I'm going to be using a saw, reciprocating saw here, and then this is all plastic, so I'm going to use a Dremel tool with a bit that'll cut that off pretty easy. One thing to keep in mind is right on this back side, you have your flange for your frame. We don't want to cut into that. We just want to cut this part off. Once you get it to where you can kind of move it around, if you can't get that extra little section cut off there, what we'll do is we'll just go back and forth with it until we can get it off, and then we can trim it down with our, come back and trim it down with our blade again. Once we get this cut out, we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. We're going to have a cincher right here in the center on the bottom of our bumper beam. We're going to remove this push pin fastener. We're going to go ahead and pull this off. And we're just going to let that hang for now. We'll reinstall that later on. Then we need to remove our washer reservoir and our horn. We're going to use a 10mm socket. For our washer reservoir, we're going to have a nut here, here, and here. For our horn, we're going to remove this bolt here at the top. When we remove our washer reservoir, we're then going to unplug all of our wiring and disconnect these hoses. Keep in mind that there may be fluid in here. If there is, it may leak a little bit. And we're going to set our reservoir aside after that.
we'll disconnect all of our plugs on our washer reservoir. I'm going to pull these off and see, get any fluid coming out of them. Sometimes what we might have to do is disconnect them up top to keep that fluid from leaking. We'll see if we can get these off. So it does look like it's going to leak here a little bit, so I'm going to go up in the engine compartment and disconnect my hoses up there. So these are our hoses up here on top. You take this and squeeze it. You can pull that one apart. And for this one, take a little flathead screwdriver and push up each in there. And then we can pop that off. We'll remove our horn. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it here. Just push on that gray tab if you're going to disconnect it all the way. And then we can slide our washer reservoir bottle off. And I kind of have to kind of work it through there. Just like that. And then we'll set it aside. Now this part is up to you. You want to be, when we set our base plate in place, we want the top of the base plate to be 2 5/8 from the top and 6 1/4 to the back of the, or back edge of the base plate. So what I did is I actually put me 2 marks there at 6 1/4, drew a line, 2 5/8, 2 marks, and squared it off. So I know this is the edge where I want my base plate to sit. And I did this on both sides. Now, if you have a second horn, which you may have one on the passenger side, it's going to make it much easier if you go ahead and remove that one also. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to slide our base plate up into place. What I found was their mark that goes back 6 1/4 from the end of the frame rail here. If we hit that line, you notice we have radiator lines right here. It actually sits up against them and we don't want it to do that. So what I did is I marked it at 6 inches, pulled my base plate out, and then marked my line at 6 inches on the other side so it's even. And then now what we want to do is we want to make sure we're level. So we want to make sure our base plate is sitting level so that it pulls correctly. So we're straight across the top, straight up and down. These 2 holes here, we want to make sure that they are lined up with that pinch weld. Then we're going to come back and we're going to drill those out and add our hardware. Now we're going to come back with a 13/32 drill bit. We're going to drill out our bottom holes. What I like to do is use the 13/32 drill bit. I'm going to start it, that way it's centered in there, and then come back with smaller bits. Because it makes it a lot easier. It's a lot easier on the drill bit, and it's a lot easier on your shoulders, and go from a small one up to that 13/32. Once you get this hole drilled out on each side, we're going to go ahead and get our hardware ready and get that installed. For your hardware, you're going to need the 3/16 by 1 inch hex bolt, lock washer, and nut. We want to make sure that we're putting Loctite on all of our hardware. Loctite does not come in your kit, but you can find it here at eTrailer. We're going to do this on each one of our bolts that we're going to be installing for our base plate. We're going to slide that through, and on the inside we're going to put the lock washer and the nut. Once you get the 2 bottom ones drilled out, you have your hardware installed, you're going to come back and you're going to drill out the 2 remaining holes with the same drill bit. This time we're going to be going just through this outside edge of our frame rail, and we're going to have a handle nut that we're going to feed up through the bottom onto the back side of the hardware. For our hardware that we're going to be installing, you're going to need your handle nut. You're going to need to put a slight bend in it. You're going to have an 1.5 inch bolt. You can see it's got a little neck on it. You're going to put on a lock washer. Again, make sure you're using Loctite. Right in the bottom of the frame rail, right down here, there's a hole. And we're going to stick this up inside. And you're going to have to kind of play with it a little bit to get the bends right. Line up with the hole. I'm going to thread our bolt into it. We're going to do the same thing with this one, and then the same thing with the 2 remaining holes on the other side. And with a 9/16 socket, we're going to come back and we're going to torque all of our hardware, the specifications, and the instructions. Once you get everything torqued down, you can come back with some aviation shears or a cutoff wheel and you can cut these wires off. Next, we're going to take a 1/2-inch drill bit. Right underneath our base plate, that plastic piece there, we're going to drill a 1/2-inch hole in it for our temperature sensor. If your temperature sensor still has a bracket on it from when it was mounted on your bumper beam, go ahead and pop that off. There's some little tabs there. If you just push them in, you can pop this out. And we're going to take this and we're just going to push it into that hole, just like that. Next, we're going to have a bunch of flat washers in our kit. We're going to take 6 of them and put them on each one of these bolts for our washer reservoir. Once you get your washers on, you can go ahead and reinstall your reservoir. Make sure if you took these off up top, you get these fed up where you can get a hold of them. Make sure they're not kinked anywhere down here. Reinstall your horn. And then go ahead and connect all your connectors to your windshield washer reservoir. Next, we have a safety cable we need to put on each side. We need to make sure we're staying away from anything that's moving where this can rub up against it and cause damage. Your frame rail that runs across this way, if we go underneath back to where it attaches here, right on the inside, there's a nice large open gap. We're going to take it and feed it one end through and up like this. We'll take these 2 ends, we'll put them on our convenience link. On the bottom of our base plate, there's a hole. We're going to slide that through like that. And we'll tighten this down. I'm using a 5/8 wrench to tighten this down. Once we get it tight, you can see how we kind of have some extra. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a zip tie. I'm going to zip tie that just like that. Once you have your safety cables in place, it's a good idea, before you reinstall your fascia, go ahead and install any of your other components for your flat toe setup, like your braking system and your diode wiring. It's going to make it a lot easier to run your wirings while your fascia is off. Once you're done with that, reinstall your fascia in reverse order from the way you took it off. It is going to require a little bit of trimming around your components up here in the front. That's going to do it for a look at and installation on the Blue Ox base plate on a 2012 Chevrolet Traverse.